Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a early impression video, and the week of Sherwood continues because today we're going to be talking about maybe one of the rarest Sherwoods. There was only 20 bottles of this produced for the whole world, so very lucky to have a couple drops to do this type of content for you guys. And this one's called Bespoke Sweet. Now, some places have it listed for example, as Bespoke Sweet number 8. It may have been the 8th attempt at finalized, but I wanted to save doing my second application just so you could see the juice. I mean, look at that. Just absolutely thick and rich and dense and animalic. But first, before we hop into the fragrance and the notes and all that good stuff, a quick blurb on YouTube. So I've gotten a ton of messages lately from a bunch of folks saying, hey, I'm not getting any notifications when your videos are coming out, Ramsey. So apparently when you, and I just learned this today, so this is a new thing for me as well. Thank you, Rich Mitch, for pointing this out, because he wasn't getting notifications either. And so we discovered that when you sign up for notifications on a channel, if you just sign up for the notifications, it defaults to what YouTube calls personalized notifications. So basically YouTube determines whether they think you would like to hear about this video or not. Okay. So my guess is, and this is just my prognostication, but my guess is that YouTube looked across its algorithm or its YouTube world and saw there weren't very many fragrance videos on the House of Sherwood. So when I started to do Sherwood videos, I think the YouTube algorithm just decided they don't need to hear about this. But they also didn't let for example, I used Rich Mitch as a guinea pig. They also didn't let him know about my Thierry Vassar video. So they may have just kind of put me on the blacklist for a while until I'm done with my Sherwood, until I go back to doing the stuff that is more broadly accepted across the algorithm. That is my guess. It's the best guess I have. So when you turn on notifications, you have a way to click the bell that basically will just do personalized notifications, which is the default. I think that's what YouTube wants. Or you can select all. And if you select all, you'll get notifications for everything, which is how most people, I think that's the way notifications work, but they don't anymore. So I don't want to be one of these guys that's like, make sure you click the bell and subscribe. It's not my thing. When stupid YouTubers would say that in the past, I would always be like, in my head, I know how to click the stupid bell. But obviously I didn't, because many of the notifications I wanted to be notified for across channels were the personalized notifications, not the all notifications. So, I mean, YouTube, it's, technology is, I mean, I'm sure that makes sense in some programmer's head in Santa Fe somewhere, but for the average person, it's probably like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I think that's why some of you are not getting notifications. I think the YouTube algorithm just decided Sherwood is not worth letting people know about because they're just not well enough known, let's say. They're kind of an under the radar type brand. But I love doing this type of perfumery, so fuck the algorithm is what I have to say. Okay, so with that out of the way, or at least what I think is going on out of the way, there are 0 YouTube reviews of this, all right? So this is a little bit of an exclusive review. And like I said, this is a very limited release. It was only 20 bottles. So here's the note listing according to Parfumo. Bourbon geranium, clary sage, and Italian bergamot in the top, with a heart of Bulgarian lavender, French iris, lily of the valley, Madagascan ylang ylang, Spanish labdanum, and tobacco in the heart, with a base of benzoin, siam, castoreum, civet, Indian oud, musk, orris root, osmanthus, and sandalwood. So here's the thing. If you have been kind of following my channel, you know that we've been on a Sherwood and just artisanal fragrance binge as of late. I'll go back to the vintages very soon. I have a plan to start reviewing some more vintage fragrances and just talking about some samples and stuff like that that have been sitting in my cabinet forever, okay? So if you have sent me something, please be patient. The list of stuff to talk about on the channel is literally never ending. There's a lot of content that I want to put out for you guys. It's just a matter of time and doing it. So I read a very interesting quote today that made me think a lot about this fragrance in terms of where it sits. So this came out in 2022, which is the year that Prakhar Gupta launched Sherwood, okay? So it was a quote from the guy who owns Acne Studios, which did a recent collaboration with Frederick Malle. Speaking of Frederick Malle, very sad news that he is leaving his brand, his brand he founded, the eponymous brand that has his name on it. He's leaving. And so the plan is that he'll be leaving in June or July or something like that. But there was a quote I was reading on the Acne Studios collaboration with Frederick Malle. And the guy who started Acne Studios, which apparently Acne Studios is huge in the fashion game. I had no clue about it until the Frederick Malle collab, because I only care about the perfume. I don't care about the purses and shoes and all that stuff. But apparently it's big in that Acne Studios is a big name, especially amongst the younger generation. I know I look young, but I'm actually older. So he basically says, nothing is definitive. Some of our creations are beautiful. Others, not so much. But even the failed ones help us take the next step towards something interesting. And I thought, wow, that is a very intelligent quote from somebody. Usually the people who make it to that level, they think their shit doesn't stink, and they think that they're just the most genius people ever, and nothing fails, and if it fails, it's not their fault, it's someone else's fault, right? That quote tells me that guy who runs Acne Studios is a very humble man who understands his place in the fashion world. So here's the thing about Bespoke Sweet right out the bat, and there's a connection between that quote and what I'm going to say about this fragrance later on, is why I brought that up. But I figured since we did Civet Balm Attar yesterday, which uses real civet, we would talk about this little bad boy. We'd knock out some Animalic Beast together. And right off of first spray, you're going to notice that Bespoke Sweet is a Animalic Beast. That's what it is. In fact, it was so animalic, Ajay, who's one of my fragrant brothers in arms when it comes to artisanal houses, he said this was too much for him, that it's the most animalic fragrance Prakhar Gupta has created. And so I was ready for something that was just going to be a knock-me-out animalic. And it's true, it is animalic. I think 99% of the population would say, yes, this is a hardcore animalic fragrance. I sit a little bit kind of in that 1%. I don't think it's a hardcore animalic fragrance. There are lots of animalic notes, but the note that my nose picks up on instantly, even in the beginning, even though it's a base note, is that synthetic deer musk accord, or that white musk. When I reviewed Musk Eternal from Sherwood, I pulled out the old synthetic deer musk and dipped it in the blotter, and you can still kind of see the stain from a couple days ago. And I can still smell it, believe it or not. If you've ever smelled synthetic deer musk, you will smell it in many fragrances. And here, there's a big dose of it right out of the gate. And the crazy thing is you can detect it from top to bottom of this fragrance. All the way through, you can detect that overdose of synthetic deer musk, okay? Now, it's filled with civet and castoreum and a touch of oud. And I say a touch of oud because if you look at Parfumo, it just shows Indian oud. But if you actually read the blurb that Prakhar Gupta put out when this was released, he lists it as a touch of Hindi oud, okay? So I would say that's a more correct descriptor because it doesn't feel like this is a big oud overdose. Like, for example, this is nowhere near close to the amount of oud that is used in Paradise, which is probably one of my favorite creations from Prakhar Gupta, but as an oud head, that is probably to be expected. So there is oud in here, but it's more used to, I think, add just a little bit of depth in the base and anchor the fragrance. This is not an oud fragrance by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it would be wrong to call it an animalic fragrance because animalics carry the day between the musk, which is synthetic, and the castoreum and the civet. It really does feel like an animalic fragrance, okay? But what's so fascinating about this is the animalic notes are a big part, and maybe you have to have a fairly large tolerance for animalics to go into the area that I'm going to go into here, but underneath this big animalic sort of blob at the top, and not just at the top, there's also animalics all throughout the fragrance, but right when you first spray, you're usually hit with a lot of animalics. But underneath it all, there sits this concoction brewing that starts to begin to form into this nebulous fragrance that starts to feel like Gentleman, which I guess I should have grabbed it for you. Hang on. I feel like I should do better at showing you guys stuff. So if you watched my review, I really hope this is Gentleman, what I just grabbed. It is. Okay. So if you watched my review of Gentleman, this came out 1 year after Bespoke Sweet. Okay. And so underneath there is, it's almost like this animalic or rough draft, this precursor to Gentleman. Gentleman feels more refined. He toned the animalics down substantially, But underneath, in Bespoke Sweet, you have a fragrance that starts to resemble Gentleman. And if a gentlemanly type fragrance interests you, I would highly encourage you to go check out my review of Gentleman. But it's funny because I told Prakar Gupta that today. I said, hey man, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you, but Bespoke Sweet reminds me of a rough draft of Gentleman. He was like, you're spot on. Honestly, that's exactly what it was. He said it was a precursor to creating Gentleman. And so they both share many notes in common. For example, they both share Bulgarian lavender. They both share bergamot, lily of the valley, this iris orris-like accord, which I think Gentleman uses both orris and carrot seed. Here, I think it's French iris in Bespoke Sweet. Spanish labdanum, and they both have castoreum in them. So you get the picture I'm trying to paint, right? It really feels to my nose like Bespoke Sweet is a rough draft of Gentleman. And it came out 1 year before, so it all kind of fits into place. And now you see that quote in a different light at the beginning, saying that some of our creations are beautiful, others not so much, but even the failed ones help us to take the next step to something interesting. That was the quote from our good friend from Acne Studios, Johansson something, I forget his name. But I'm a fan of, from what I've heard him speaking anyways, okay? So you see the connection. Not that Bespoke Sweet was a failed fragrance, although I do think that I have a criticism, okay? I have a criticism of Bespoke Sweet, and that really is that musk overdose. It feels like especially in the top, okay? So the first hour or two, I would say, that white musk accord is overwhelming to me. When I reviewed Musk Eternel from the same house, from Sherwood, I had a little bit of a similar criticism, but that was literally supposed to be a musk fragrance. So I still think that the white musk was overdosed in both of these creations, although both of these were his very first year in officially blending and putting stuff out to the market, and he releases stuff similar to a Riche Ladore. So it's kind of a one-hit release, and then it's gone. And maybe he does a round two, maybe he doesn't, kind of thing, right? And so, like I said, if you've ever smelled synthetic deer musk by itself, either white musks or synthetic deer musk, I think it's a good note for what it is, but it's obviously very overpowering. And here, I think early on in his blending journey, he overdosed it in a way where in Bespoke Sweet, it starts to smell off balance or off kilter or whatever you want to call it, right? It starts to smell, and overdosed in a way where it takes away from the rest of the fragrance. I don't like that. My nose keeps going back to the white musk early on. Now, I've got a 7-hour dry down here of Bespoke Sweet, and the dry down is beautiful. The dry down starts to get back on track, if you will. But the first couple hours, I think, if you are familiar with that smell of white musk, or maybe you'll just have something bothering you that feels too animalic, I think it's that synthetic deer musk accord that Prakar Gupta just used too much of, right? As the hours tick by, the other beautiful notes start to make an appearance. So just like Russian Adam did with Civet Bomb, which I discussed yesterday, an amazing attar, Russian Adam said he used 1 kg of real Ethiopian civet paste when doing the attar. I don't know how much was used here by Prakar Gupta, but he did tell me that he used real civet and real castoreum in the blend. Okay, so even the synthetic civet, which I've smelled, smells good. I think this is the synthetic. I think this is the synthetic civet. Even the synthetic civet, well, I shouldn't say it smells good, but I like it for a civet, for a synthetic civet alternative, let's say, okay? Similar to the way I like the synthetic deer musk. I think they're good synthetics, but nothing feels like the original. The original just feels so much deeper. It almost feels like the most sour butter you could ever imagine. Just imagine cutting into butter that has sat out on the counter for half an hour. It's not rock hard straight out of the fridge. It is beginning to get soft, right? And buttery. But imagine it's almost turned in a way where the butter is sour. And so it has this sour, bitter, it almost like you want to make a face like you just stuck a warhead in your mouth. You just want to pucker your lips and just, you know, it's sour. But on the other hand, it adds this unbelievable animalic depth to the fragrance. Some would say pissy. I don't think the civet that I've smelled from the real civet. I think the synthetic civet smells much more pissy. The civet, the Animalis note in Koros or whatever, smells very pissy. The synthetic civet smells pissy. The real civet, and this may be blended with some synthetic civet as well, but I don't get this hardcore pissiness, basically. But I do get that Animalic sour butter-like smell. And so what you'll notice is you'll never find these type of ingredients. Real Hindi oud, real civet, real castoreum, high-class Bulgarian lavender, French iris. I mean, these are high-class, expensive ingredients. And now, Bespoke Sweet doesn't go into the same territory as Gentleman, for example. They smell very similar in ways, but in other ways, there are bits and pieces that are missing. So, for example, there is no green tea note listed in Bespoke Sweet. So it doesn't have that green tea, which is a big bridge in Gentleman. So go check out my Gentleman review if you really want to learn more about that. But what it does have, interestingly enough, and I think this is where Prakhar Gupta really shined in Gentleman for me, is it has this suave character of the fragrance. The fragrance kind of carries itself in a certain way. I talked a lot in my Gentleman video about how when you wear a fragrance like Gentleman, and I'm actually going to include Bespoke Sweet in this exact same scenario. Funnily enough, I had some house cleaners come clean the house today while I was working from home. And one of them walked in and walked right past me, and they were like, "Oh, it smells good in here." And I was like, "It's probably not the house. It's probably me. The house needed cleaning. I just put on some Bespoke Sweet a couple hours before. So it was probably me that she was smelling." So I don't really care about compliments or anything like that, but I do feel like both of these kind of act in a way where they accentuate your mannerisms. So if you're elegant, if you're dignified, if you have refinement, you know, the example I gave in Gentleman was if you know how to properly use the spoons and forks, which ones to use for the salad, which one to use for the main dish, how to hold your silverware, how to properly fold your napkin when you're done. If you've been taught basic mannerisms, right? Gentlemanly mannerisms. These type of fragrances accentuate those, okay? And it's interesting because the fragrance wears in a way and it has a personality that really does feel somewhat elegant and suave. And this herbal lavender gives a little bit of a vintage throwback feel. The beautiful iris here somehow feels like it's like iris, but imagine hot iris, like not hot as in she's fine hot, but hot as in like you took that French iris. Imagine you took the iris bulb right out of the ground, and after letting it sit a couple years, you stuck it in the frying pan because it's supposed to mature into orris butter. It takes years for iris to properly become iris. And so there's a whole thing on, I'm sure you can find YouTube videos on it, but imagine you stuck it in the frying pan and heated it up. That's what I mean by hot. And along with that, there's almost this slightly spicy element that starts to come through in the heart of the fragrance. Almost gives it a slight chili-like vibe. You'll notice it once that overdose of deer musk starts to die down as the hours dry by. As the hours go on, you'll notice that spiciness sort of adds to that cooked iris image. The iris is beautiful. I love iris in a fragrance. It adds this, you know, some say powdery, some say chalky, some say earthy. The best description I think I heard is almost like smelling a newborn baby's head. You know, it has that just, there's this, it does something to, I read an article once that said the smell of just a newborn baby's head on a mother tends to, like, after birth, calm them down because the baby's breastfeeding and the head is right here. The mother is almost right, the head is right underneath the mother's nose almost, right? There's something very primal about that. There's something very, you know, continuation of the human race type thing, right? And so this beautiful iris comes in, and along with the spices, it kind of makes the floral heart have this sort of spice blend, but with flowers. So imagine like ylang ylang, lily of the valley, but added in with some spices somewhere that I get in the heart. And probably the classiest part of the fragrance for me is the dry down, hands down, because that big white musk overdose goes further and further into the background. the part that I hate the most in this fragrance. And what ends up taking its place is a big dose of osmanthus. Giant osmanthus in the dry down. And the osmanthus works in tandem with the castoreum beautifully, because once you get to that 3 or 4 hour mark, the osmanthus dominates. It gives it this furry, hairy, blown up leather, brown, sort of furry type leather smell with nectarines and peaches. And I love osmanthus. One of my favorite, most interesting flowers, I think. And it adds this unbelievable depth to a fragrance, and it works fantastic with leather. And in the base here, you have castoreum, which gives off leathery vibes, but also you have tobacco. And the tobacco note in here, again, adds to that gentlemanly image. But there's some heavier notes in here. Spanish labdanum, tobacco, Indian oud, again, just a little bit though. Castoreum, benzoin from Siam, sandalwood, the osmanthus. Osmanthus, like I said, gives that leathery, sort of, you could say suede-like feel sometimes. Leathery, nectarine-like suede. It is an animalic smelling flower though. And so the iris adds poshness, and it just is, it's an intriguing fragrance, and you can almost just feel like the nebula of what came together to create Gentleman. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance, but you have to have a tolerance for animalics. If you don't, this fragrance will absolutely wear you. And again, doing these type of hard to find fragrance reviews, do not feel like you're missing out. It is truly a journey. There's so many fragrances out there. There are thousands of fragrances. You could probably put a PDF together of literally 1,000 fragrances that I've never smelled, and go, have you smelled this, Ramsey? Have you smelled this? Have you? And it's be like, nope, 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 nope. It's just impossible to keep up with everything. So just because I'm highlighting these on the channel, do not feel like you have to go, give somebody $1,000 for one of the only 20 bottles of this surviving in the world. Don't do that, okay? But these videos are kind of meant for the library. They're meant for what I would consider my fragrance library. I want this channel to be a place where you can almost like cross-reference fragrances and my thoughts and hear about them and kind of get my honest thoughts on them and my honest opinions. And so maybe in 2 or 3 years, someone will stumble across a bottle. They'll come back and pull this fragrance up. Maybe watching this video will get somebody into the house of Sherwood and they'll buy the newest release or whatever it is, right? That's more why I'm doing these. I know that these type of videos will not get the clicks and interest of the Xerjoffs and all that good stuff. I understand that, right? But I want to do it because this is the type of content that it's almost thankless content. Very few people are willing to get on here and do a video that they know is going to get less clicks, because a lot of people in the YouTube game, they do it for the clicks, for the revenue, for all that stuff. And I'm trying to make sure that my channel stays true for the love of the fragrance game. I want my love and passion to kind of shine through on these videos, and that's literally why I do them. So yes, that is my thoughts on Bespoke Sweet. Very rare, like I said, only 20 bottles for the whole world, I think, were put out. It was almost literally like a bespoke style fragrance, but very blessed to get to try these. Thank you to Precursor for sending me very generous samples. Love wearing these. And we may have 1 or 2 Sherwood videos to come. But for now, I think we have done a hell of a job on Sherwood Week. And we'll probably move on to some other things here for a bit. But as always, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.